Welcome back to the Wise Divine Women podcast, where we help you go from fed up to faith fueled, helping you become the wise divine women that you've been called to be. Today, I have Amber Lynn Vitale from Beam Minerals. I am truly blessed and honored to have her finally with me. We've been working on this for a little while. And to me, as you've known throughout all my talks, minerals are so important. But I think the most important thing is the way that they have this formulated, and it is just incredible. And I'm has purchased a sample, and we're getting that all set into play. And I can't wait to do it myself, because I know myself personally, minerals for me are going to be a really good game changer in getting my whole, I don't want to say pull my stuff together, but get that whole energy back and have my foundation filled again. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dana. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, Beam Minerals, so it's been around for a couple of years, and why
About
did it,
6, yeah. Oh, no, 7.
7 years now, and I'm just hearing about it, so I apologize. So tell me about it, and where has it started from, and why are you love it so much?
Wow. It's so much to say there. Let me start here. Natural humans and every other creature that ever drank from the surface of this earth in a freshwater ecosystem will pick up the types of minerals that are in beam minerals, humic and fulvic mineral complexes, by drinking from a river, a lake, a stream, a pond, because you have natural mineral elements. We all think about tumbling over rocks, but it's really that all of this freshwater ecosystem is going to fall to the earth and fall into that lake, stream, pond, decompose, and become its elemental nature again, elements like of the periodic table. And what fulvic and humic are the molecules that keep that all together. As you said, you actually said, get myself together, it keeps
Yeah.
all of that together. And fulvic and humic are made by microorganisms when they decompose plant matter. Made by microorganisms, postbiotic, when they decompose plants, period. So it is coming from a freshwater ecosystem in which we live, by the way. No matter how much you like to swim in the ocean, you still drink fresh water. And we all used to get it because it's in the roots of our tubers that we would pull up. It was in the leaves and stems and fruits of the plants that we would eat. It was in every sip of water that we would drink. If we think of being divine humans in a divine garden on this planet and what we have lost and no longer welcome into ourselves, like that would have been the ideal. I have a beautiful irrigation ditch out here. I'd love to drink from it. I can get tons of fulvic and humic, but there's parasites in there too. So I'm not going to do that. And so we as a company, we have taken an ancient earth geologic layer from tens of millions of years ago that we happen to know just by dating was an instant in time when an entire way of life went extinct and then decomposed over eons and fossilized, crystallized. And you can now take that and resolubilize it in water and let it light back up your life again. And this is what's being used in regenerative agriculture. There are agricultural humic substances, and there are those that are made for use for humans. I've been using it in my pasture and on my animals for a long time, but to use it in us now is really the next step because, as far as I'm concerned, regenerative farming happens in here first,
Yeah.
and the two go together.
Yeah, it's so important, the whole regenerative farming and the farmsteading and getting ourselves back to nature, and even in farming itself, rotations and fertilizer and the different
Amber,
elements naturally, organically working those things are just certainly helping the whole system and the way of farming, and the saving of the land and the water systems is certainly becoming the way to go for a lot of farmers and a lot of ecosystems. So we've definitely damaged our, yeah. So the way that you've formulated Beam, can you describe that for us?
we don't formulate it. I think that's the amazing thing about it. So many supplements are made with the limitations of the human brain saying, well, I'm going to put this much magnesium and this much potassium. And I read this study about you have to have this opposition of magnesium and calcium, and you have to have your potassium and your sodium, and you have to have your chloride, and you have to have, and this is just us thinking with our little pea brains. So when you take an entire rainforest and it dies and decomposes and then fossilizes and crystallizes, every single element that made that rainforest is still there. But the microorganisms that decompose it make out of the carbon and the oxygen and hydrogen these little molecules around which all of the rest of those elements gather. And you can then literally extract that into water that is at a dilution that leaves it in an ionic relationship where water, and I think, people picture water as oxygen and two hydrogens like a triangle. I like to flip it on its head. Water is a vessel.
Yeah.
Water carries, and structured water is especially ready to receive and make relationships with other elements, other molecules, and that's what water does. If we go back to chemistry class, we remember that it is the universal solvent, and it makes relationships with all things by breaking them down and bringing them with it. And so water takes this fossilized, crystallized earth layer, extracts it into ionic, which is a electromagnetic relationship. So if you could see it in the bottle, it would just be this net of electromagnetism where it can then easily enter our bloodstream and travel to either between ourselves with humic, which is very large, or into and out of our cells with fulvic, which acts like a shuttle. So we don't formulate the ratios. Those are as they exist in a freshwater ecosystem, mostly from the plants. So when we say plant-based, many supplements say plant-based. It's
Yeah.
the term that is used. They
Right.
might mean that they threw it in with some plant powder. We mean it's from plants. It's just a long time ago.
Hmm. And you've separated the humic from the fulvic, which a lot of companies don't do. And that's because of the molecular structure.
So a little bit tricky. In fact, MicroBoost, which we call the humic product, still retains some fulvic in it. So it has little pockets of fulvic. It's about a 4-to-1 ratio. Humic will always hold on to a little fulvic. It's like the mothership that sends a shuttle to the planet because it can't land on the planet. The mothership can't land in your cell. It has to stay outside your cell. That's humic. Fulvic can be the shuttle to go in the cell and back out. Drop off supplies, bring back waste to the mothership. And so they're both necessary, but in a world of both in regenerative farming and in humans and in our pets and in our farm animals, we're all depleted. So being able to also have a product in addition to MicroBoost where there's just fulvic, you can replenish the depletion. We do it in farming. We make sprays with fulvic and solubilized minerals to do a leaf spray on plants to raise the level of things they might be particularly deficient in still, or that they need extra amounts of. And when we do this for ourselves, we can use fulvic as our mineral supplement. I basically add it to my water all day long because my water doesn't have it because I
Yeah.
filter it, even though I'm on a well. So now I'm making the water like I'm taking from the stream with no
Wonderful.
with no microbes and no parasites.
Yeah, yeah, that always seems, that seems to be the problem for a lot of people is just making sure that that cleanliness of the water is there. And that's where people get into trouble with that reverse osmosis or filtering too clean, and then they deplete their minerals. Sure, it may have taken out the garbage and the toxins, but their minerals are gone. And I find that, when talking to people or even looking at them from their test results or looking at them, from thermography point of view, it's like, okay, you're just not getting enough minerals, enough magnesium, enough to get things to calm down, to come down to neutral. And yeah, that's why it's so exciting about the Beam formulas. I'm sorry, the Beam products, because to me, it just makes perfect sense. You've got that opportunity of hydrating cellularly and then hydrating the body completely and then having everything there that the body needs. And that's what I like about the mineral complexes because It has all the little parts and all the little micros to make everything work better. Why do
It
you
does.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, yes, understanding that we need minerals in certain ratios and
Yeah.
that we cannot just put in 400 milligrams of magnesium and nothing else and expect it to function properly in the body,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example.
I think that's the case sort of with calcium as well. It's that too much calcium and then they don't have everything else to come along and make it work better. So it's always that unfortunate situation that women get themselves into when we're looking at keeping their calcium ratios up or trying to get the calcium that they take to work better. So in aging or even in just any phase of life, why are minerals so important?
Well, I view aging as an enzymatic slowdown. And I think that a lot of old timers in nutrition were really right on when they talked about we're not producing as many enzymes, which, by the way, takes mineral cofactors to make the proteins that are enzymes. Our enzymes aren't functioning as well because they don't have the cofactors to make them function. It's like a little key that, when you go to start your snowblower, which is going to happen to me pretty soon, the key has to be in there and it has to be turned or the crank isn't going to work.
Right.
Right. And so mineral cofactors help the enzyme that is going to make something. And a reduction in enzymatic activity or a reduction in the production of enzymes. If a lot of people know about digestive enzymes. So if we just say if you don't have as many pancreatic digestive enzymes, you can't digest your proteins fast, and you don't get as much nutrition. Then you don't get as many minerals. You don't get as many amino acids. Then you can't make as many enzymes. So they don't function as well. Then you get less nutrition. It's just this terrible vicious cycle. But there are so many other enzymes in the body at the cellular level inside the cell, the mitochondria have all of these chemical reactions that need to take place. Enzymes are catalysts and minerals are catalysts for the catalysts. And so as we age, those cells just get tired and our ability to identify cells that aren't functioning optimally and get them out. It's like a big corporation, right? You don't know that Bonnie in the corner on the eighth floor really isn't doing anything every day. She's just showing up for her desk and she's been there for 20 years and she's not doing anything. And that's how many cells are in our body, and this burden just builds and builds and builds until it's almost like, I think of a house where somebody is, you know, hoarding. They can't bring themselves to clean out, and over the years, it gets worse and more and more and more overwhelming until there's nothing that they can do about it, and they can't function. They can't move. They can't bring anything new in. They're suffocating in this house, and our cells are our houses. So if we don't have constant new information, new nutrition in and waste out, we basically suffocate.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. That's a great analogy, right? And even with the hoarding aspect, you can't it doesn't flush. You can't the body hoards, thus it doesn't flush and you need everything to just come along. It's like definitely the chicken and the egg, right? You definitely need the minerals to make everything work properly in the first place. So,
And that is just it. So when you're saying it's the chicken or the egg, and it's funny because that is the exact thing that I was using in a presentation the other day. Which is it? Because you're already depleted.
yeah.
Maybe you have a lot of food sensitivities. Maybe you've got some digestive issues, some digestive lining issues, maybe you've got some inflammation. Every time you eat, it hurts, you get bloated. You can only eat a few plain foods, but they're not really healthy foods. You're trying to throw down a supplement. Everything to get nutrients in is dependent upon your digestion working, and it's not working. So, how can you possibly replenish?
Mm.
This is where Beam is different. This is why our foundation two products are liquid and it's ionically suspended, which means nothing ever settles. You don't have to stir it, mix it, shake it, and it can literally just seep or passively diffuse is the word into your bloodstream and start dispersing throughout your entire body and reach all your cells. It's entirely independent of your digestive system. So we don't have to even worry when someone says, but I have this, but I have that. And we can go very slowly. I always tell the practitioners, I'm like, I don't care if you put one drop in someone's water, it's more than they had before. So if somebody's extremely sensitive, extremely reactive, and we just start with one drop and tomorrow we do two, and in a while we've got a dropper full until we get up to that half cap, until we get up to that full cap, a capful is an ounce, then it's fine. We will go as slowly as you need to go. You're already getting more than you've ever had, probably in your life, and at least in many, many years.
Mm. And being that it's more bioavailable, it starts right off the hop, right? Rather than that pill or, that making sure the body breaks it down well enough, because that's been the problem in the first place. It needs to start the ball rolling. And I love that it is already bioavailable, even upon the drink. So I think that's amazing.
And that's why we have the spray also
Um,
because, and I honestly, when I first saw the spray, I was like, come on, which is silly for me to even doubt because we spray fulvic mineral complexes on leaves. I sprayed it on my trees, my apple trees. So what is the difference? This is our leaf and it can penetrate and it can get in here. And so this is a very strong barrier, but it is the same type of barrier as inside our gastrointestinal tract. So the minute we put something in our mouth, and you can even spray the spray in your mouth if you want to, the minute we put something in our mouth, it is starting to get in there. And anybody who's ever swum in even a lake, but especially in the ocean, and you see how much water you absorb through your skin. Have you ever noticed that?
yeah,
And then I
well,
got
I
to get out
think
of the water bathroom because I absorbed a lot of.
it absorbs a lot of water. And that's why, even doing Epsom salt baths or even soaking in the tub is so good. And we know that. So even just spraying things on the skin, which makes absolute perfect sense, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is available in a variety of different places, or just practitioners, or online
All of
available.
the above, not really in a retail store. It could be in a practitioner's retail store, for example, or in their office. You can find it on social media. You can find it on our website. But we have a robust practitioner program
Yeah.
because we know that there's science behind this. In fact, we're getting very close to having a great body of studies that support the use of humic and fulvic throughout agriculture on farm animals, which I have, and in humans and in ecosystems, and being able to really show how those molecules work. They're a bit of a mystery. They do a lot of their work in sort of the dark. It's hard. You can't watch a single molecule do what it does. Unfortunately, you have to see how it changes
Yeah.
the environment, the context that it's in. But there is a robust body of evidence. I'm very excited about bringing that to our practitioners. I'm available for practitioners and for them to bring case studies and for us to discuss things. And most of the time, we use our critical thinking skills, if you can imagine that, and look at how miraculous it is that every molecule functions based on the bond energies of each element attached to another element. And they function as though they are living, as though they have a mind, as though they have a innate directive. And you may know I have a background in Ayurvedic medicine. And the term for this is that every single thing, even the rock in the cliff in the canyon here, has innate divine intelligence. Even a magnesium oxide, which we think is inanimate, has an innate divine intelligence. When it's in the right environment, that divine directive will be revealed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Everything has its purpose, and everything has a life, and everything works together as it should in perfect harmony when that harmony is set in motion. And it's this off kilter of life that we've created for ourselves. And truly, it's getting back to foundation. And minerals, to me, are foundation. And that is, it's been the foundation of life. Everything breaks down, everything builds itself back up out of that, and it's the circle of life. Weird enough, but it's again this: we need to
Absolutely.
stop being so fancy, and we really need to slow down, breathe, and move, and just rebuild everything from the foundation up. Make everything work.
It
Think.
is so foundational. I am 100% with you on that. And it's so funny. It's as though you've been in my back pocket all day. Like I was just explaining to a practitioner, like things grow, they live, they die, they
Yes.
become life again. They grow, they live, they die, they become life again. It's just this constant, like the tree goes up, the leaves fall down, everything decays, it comes back into the tree. in that tree's ecosystem over 300 years, it's just this constant, it's a torus, really, right? It's this torus of life, and it is foundational. And I always say, please just give me 2 months with beam minerals, then do your testing.
Yeah.
Then fill out your full intake form, because all the things you might have come in for, the brain fog, the cramps, the sleeplessness, crazy, can't stop the monkey mind, the hair falling out, I mean, there's just so many things that could improve, at least if not go away, in a couple months of true cellular replenishment, to where we can actually see we peeled back the layer, we peeled back the paper outside of the onion to get to the real juicy part, to say what's really going on here with this person. You know,
Yeah. And
not all
that's,
the symptoms.
and I think that's very true, Amber. Like, we can do thousands of tests, right? But they'll all come back to maybe just being, mitochondrial energy, and you don't have any minerals. And, of course, you're not going to have absorption. Of course, your thyroid's not going to be functioning properly. Of course, your adrenals are not working well because you're missing a foundation. So I'm always like, are you taking enough minerals? So I love this. I can't wait to try it. And I really, with my clientele in the States, I'm like sending them the link, get on this, because it just means so much to get things, at the ball rolling for people, right? Even make the crazy supplements that they're already taking work better, to me in my.
Better, and then they can use less, which is true sustainability.
No,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And I'd love to make the difference, because this is a trace mineral concentrate, right? This is it. These are trace minerals. You're not getting 1,000 milligrams of calcium. You're getting
No.
maybe 20, but all of it is available to go into your cells. And so that's the difference. There are other trace mineral concentrates out there, those that come from salt lakes. There are those that come from salt mines. There are those that were ancient seabeds. There are those that come from ocean water. Those that are formulated by human minds to be like ocean water. Number one, what we put in our mouth is fresh water. Even if we like salty food, we already know that can lead to heart disease. Why? Because it changes your microbiome, because you have a garden in here.
Hmm.
This is not an ocean. The ocean that is your bloodstream, as some people like to call it, your body creates. Your body creates it. Your body filters and decides on the molarity of what minerals are going to be in there to make it salty in your bloodstream, to make it, like many people say, Precambrian oceans. It's a very romantic thought. It's a very romantic thought. I love the idea that we've enclosed the ocean inside of us, and that we're somehow still belonging to the ocean. We must protect the oceans, and we are connected to it. But our body decides what that is. It's somewhat coincidental
Hmm.
that we are similar to an ocean inside. It just works better that way, because that conducts electricity. So it works better that way. And these trace mineral concentrates that are built on ratios that exist in seawater, salt water, are not made for our gut microbiome.
Right.
So that is a problem. There are people who are sweating excessively. There are people who have, I believe that cystic fibrosis is a spectrum. There are people who have saltier sweat, more chlorine in their sweat. It's genetic. They're sort of somewhere on that spectrum. They don't have full cystic fibrosis, but they still lose these salts more easily. They may benefit from supplementation of ocean or salt lake derived mineral concentrates. They're going to have to find their happy sweet spot, and they're going to have to do it in small amounts. You know what happens if you drink Epsom salts. You
Uh,
flush your gut and you go to the, yes, you never do that when you have a 1 hour road trip or getting on a plane. Do not, you stay close to the porcelain throne, people. Let us warn you right now. So it causes your garden to flush out,
mhm.
because it's not osmotically balanced. Okay. And so that's one difference. There are wonderful calcium products out there that use algae or coral from the ocean, and they have 72 some trace minerals as well, which is great, but they are ocean based.
Yeah.
They're just not as salt. Okay. They might be more bromine, more sodium. There are mineral concentrates that are made to be like freshwater ecosystems. There are trace mineral concentrates that are made with, again, human brains thinking this is how we're going to do it. None of them have fulvic as a delivery system and humic as a cleanup crew. So these are the differentiators. Once you've kind of gotten your body back in freshwater ecosystem equilibrium with fulvic and humic and beam, if you still need more of something, then you do it like you would have eaten it. Then you do it like your ancestors do. You get your iron from an animal or from, some algae or some greens or some things that you picked up, right? We don't go dig out an iron deposit in a mine and eat that unless there's that thing called pica, right? When people are really, really depleted, but it doesn't help. We're not
Right.
made to eat that.
Yeah. I think it's just amazing. And I love how you have just as much information and on YouTube and on your website but for humans, but just as much for our loved ones, dogs and cats. And I'd never even imagined that you're doing the agriculture aspect of things, which makes absolute perfect sense. And in most cases, I'm sure when it comes to equine or cattle or dairy, they already do all that. Like they do that aspect of minerals and salt licks and doing those things were already there, which we don't do ourselves. So it's amazing the broad research that Beam is doing, not just for ourselves, but for the whole system, right? The whole
Mm.
ecosystem. From the ground to the plants to the animals that we eat and the plants that we eat, everything should be in perfect harmony. So I think that's incredible.
It should. And to be clear, we aren't producing agricultural products as yet. We would
No,
very
no,
much
no.
like to, but humic and fulvic substances are used in agriculture
Right.
quite a lot. And yes, on a regenerative farm, which incorporates livestock, when the animals poop, drop their biology, and that goes into the compost heap with all the other stuff, and it decomposes. Fulvic and humic are made, and all these mineral and elemental complexes, and that gets spread back out. And then there's this healthy, again, that cycling. This
Cycle.
goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, and the animals tend to be healthier. In a factory farm situation, in an enclosed animal livestock situation, what they've found is that they can supplement humic substances, powders into the feed and into the water, and the animals stay healthier even though they are not in a natural ecosystem where they can access that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our dogs and cats, they have all the same problems we do for two reasons. One, obviously, dog food and cat food that are processed are just like Lucky Charms. They're just crappy cereal. Sorry.
Yeah.
That is, giving them the bare minimum. It has nothing to do with what they ate as natural living animals. They're getting all the same diseases of modern diet that we have. As a result of that, they showed, I don't know if you've ever seen like the studies on like a gorilla in a zoo and giving them human food and they get heart disease and they get high blood pressure and they get diabetes and they get all the stuff that we get. But the other reason our animals have the same problems we do is because our microbiomes start to equilibrate a little bit. And we become my dog has and I have a somewhat balanced microbiome together. And so our animals are reflecting us emotionally,
Mhm.
spiritually, even microbially. And then, of course, we're feeding them. No, you get your kibble and I get my kibble. You get that, I get my chips. You get that, I get my Cheerios. You get that.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard afford to give our animals people food.
It is. I always find it funny when you talk about supplementation that, you go over it with a client and what are they taking and they're all, "No, I give that to my dog though. No, I give that to my dog." I'm like, "Okay, you do need to give it to yourself. These are important things, not just for your dog, but for yourself." And I love that you have those two product lineups. So most of your research is found on the Beam website. I know that the Instagram page has been a incredible resource to me, and you must have a YouTube channel as well where people can learn more about Beam, correct?
There have been so many podcasts and so many we've put together a lot of just informative things lately. Yes, so there are YouTube videos, some that Caroline has done, some that I've done, some we've done together, and that is growing. We're having a ever greater body of that. Our blogs under education or learn more, I forget which it is on the website, are great. And people forget that it's all right there. There are blogs upon blogs upon blogs upon blogs. And what I love about them is they have, if you see a little bracket and an asterisk and you click on that, you will get to a study.
Oh,
Not a study on our product, but studies on humic, studies on fulvic, studies
right.
on mineral depletion, studies on how food is depleted. Our grandfather's apple, we'd have to eat seven today to
Yeah.
cook. These are studies, so we're drawing everything that we're teaching about from real science. And that's something that I really love about it, having a little bit of evidence. It's great to hear people's stories. It's great to hear Caroline's stories. My stories are smaller, but they're good stories. We hear stories from customers, we hear stories from patients and clients, but you need to have a scientific basis for what you're doing. And this is molecular biology, and it's truly fascinating. Get to
Is
the
it
root of it.
is. So as we finish up here today, I'm going to make sure we have all the information where you can find anything that you need, podcasts or research, or where you can find Beam products for yourself and for your family and loved ones. Amber, what is a word of wisdom as a practitioner or as a woman? What is a word of wisdom that you hold true to and maybe that you find yourself sharing often?
Well, I will give you my 3 questions whenever faced with, should I take this supplement? Would it be good for me? Should I start taking creatine? Because all of the women over 50 who are getting strong and fit are taking creatine. Should I, all of these, what should I do? I say, what would my ancestors have done? Is there a natural equivalent for it? So that's already like a yes, but why can't I have that natural equivalent? And is this a good approximation of that? Okay, so if we were going to take creatine, for example, what would my ancestors have done? They would have chased animals. Can I get creatine in nature? I could eat more steak. Why do I need creatine? I still haven't
Mm.
figured that one out. I need it because I want to get there faster. I need it because it's hard. I need it because it'll help me make my gains. I need it because it will make me look 40 when I'm actually 70. And then I go, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to keep
There-
doing that? What will
There's
be the
always a
cost of
problem.
that? And I don't mean money. There is going to be a problem. So that's my thought process that I walk myself through, that I walk other people through, because I feel like there's always a way to achieve it as if it is nature or in nature. And that's what we have to get back to, or we're not going to protect nature. We might as well be on a space station.
Yeah, that's so perfect. It is a really good reminder to step back and breathe and ask the important questions. Again, how did my ancestors get it? Where's a natural source of it? And is it something that I really need? Like, is it the gain? Like, what is the goal behind the thing? So I love that, Amber.
And then people have to ask, you got to remember where you live. Where you live and where I live, mangoes are not what our ancestors ate.
Yeah.
Okay. They might be for some people, but they're not for me. So that's not where I'm going to get my vitamin A.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to get some cod liver oil. Like it's also cold, so I'm not gonna live on mango. I need more hot food, more well-cooked food, more sustenance. So don't imagine your ancestors who were living in an entirely different climate than you are.
Hmm. And Ayurvedic nutrition, again, completely different topic for a completely different day. And it's winter season now. And yeah, very different true nutrition line up for that season. So I thank you so much, Amber, for being part of this. And I thank everyone for, you know, their interest in fulvic and humic minerals. And I think it's incredible. And I think it's definitely something that you have to get started on and or at least play with it to see how your body responds. And it's always a give and take, and you always come to it with kindness. Thank you so much for being part of the Wise Divine Women podcast, where we're helping you go from fed up to faith fueled, helping you to become the wise divine women that you've been called to be. Thank you.